I had a really big question going into our Mount Kilimanjaro climb. Ironically, it's not something that I could find the answer to when I was searching Google. In fact, I was surprised to learn that it's not something I would know the answer to until I actually climbed Mount Kilimanjaro myself. And I'm going to tell you that big question that I had in just a few minutes, but not before I answer a few others. Today, I'm answering Google's most asked questions about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. What's the best route? There are several different routes to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I selected the 7-day Machame route. I selected it because I wanted a few extra days on the trail to acclimate and improve our group's chances of making it to the summit. Did it work? It totally worked. So when it comes to selecting your route for Kilimanjaro, I would look at a few things. First, I would look at how much time you have to spend on the mountain. Can you spend 5, 7, 8 plus days climbing Kilimanjaro? And I'd look at your budget, because the longer you're going to be on the route, naturally, those trips are going to be a little bit more expensive. With the Machame route, most guiding companies offer the option of doing it in 6 days or 7 days. If you do it in 6 days, that last day is a lot of hours on your feet. And we saw people coming down the 6-day route as we were headed to our final camp, Barafu, and they were pretty smoked. They were really tired. So when it comes to the best route, think about your budget, how much time you can spend on the mountain, and think about if reaching the summit is really your goal. If reaching the summit is not necessarily your goal, if just being on the mountain is your goal, then maybe go with a shorter route. But if reaching the summit is your goal, then definitely choose a longer route if you can. Next up, what's the elevation of the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro? 19,341 feet. I'm never going to forget that elevation because it is the highest I've ever been in my entire life. How much does it cost to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? I did a video about this previously where I laid out the base cost of a Kilimanjaro climb. It totally depends what guiding company you're using, what route you're taking, how long the route is. So many factors go into the base cost of your climb, and you get what you pay for. Our guiding company was Zara, and they were kind of a middle of the road guiding company as far as expense goes. They weren't the cheapest guiding company out there, but they also weren't the most expensive guiding company out there. But we had a great experience with them. We had good gear, we had good food, and our guides really took good care of us. So we recommend Zara if you're looking for a guiding company. But when it comes to the actual cost of your climb, there's so many things to take into consideration. First, there's the base cost of your climb. Then there's other expenses such as your travel insurance and your rescue insurance. Make sure you don't just get travel insurance, but also rescue insurance. I'll talk about that in a future video. Your gear and equipment, if you have to buy something new for your climb, your plane tickets to and from Kilimanjaro International Airport, your accommodations before and after the trip, food before and after and during your travels, vaccinations if you need any vaccinations before your climb, your visa to enter Tanzania, any medications you might need such as Diamox, that's an added expense, plus tips for your guides and porters. One thing that I did not do was budget enough for tips for our guides and porters. I budgeted $350, and that is what I tipped them, but that was not enough. Next year I'm going to increase that to $450 after seeing how hard they work on the mountain to make sure that we have a good experience. I just want to be super duper generous with my tips. So if you're curious about how much my Kilimanjaro climb cost, go check out this video, but that is how much it cost me personally to climb Kilimanjaro in June of 2024. Next up, how difficult is it to climb Kilimanjaro? A lot of serious mountaineers kind of scoff at Kilimanjaro because it's a hike. It's not a climb. It's not technical. You don't need harnesses and ropes and ice axes and helmets. The most technical part of the climb is the Barranco wall, and really it's just scrambling. There's times when you need both your hands and your feet, but it is not a technical climb. So in terms of difficulty on a mountaineering scale, it's not difficult at all. Personally, I think where the difficulty came in was just the repeated hiking day after day after day. Someone in our group compared it to climbing a 14er every single day and then running a marathon. I've only climbed a few 14ers and I've never run a marathon, so I don't know if that's an accurate description. But the difficulty, I think, for most women in our group was just the repeated day after day after day of walking uphill at a slow, steady pace. And then summit night, of course, is going to push everyone, regardless of how fit you are, just because the elevation is so extreme. Personally, I think that anyone is capable of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro if you follow a training plan, and check out the link below in our description to find our training plan that we're using to get ready for our 2025 climb based off what I experienced during our 2024 climb. And if you just have the desire, if you have the willpower, if you have a little bit of grit and determination, you can make it and you can do this climb. And also, if you stay healthy, our guides told us that they thought everyone in our group could make it to the summit as long as we all stayed healthy. And it was true. The people who wanted to make it to the summit were able to. One person wanted to make it to the summit. She made it to Stella Point, which is so close to the summit, but it's still considered one of the summits of Mount Kilimanjaro. Next up, how do you get there? How do you get to Kilimanjaro? Most people in our group flew from the US. We had one fly in from Australia, and we all kind of flew through various European airports. Vienna, Addis Ababa, and Amsterdam were the flights that got us from Europe or other parts of Africa to the Kilimanjaro International Airport. It's actually not a very large airport. It's quite small. So I don't know how many flights come into Kilimanjaro International Airport every day, but I don't think there's a lot of them. Basically, it's 2 long flights. So it's like a long flight to get to that place in Europe wherever you're connecting. And then it's another 6 to 8 hour flight to get to Kilimanjaro. For me, overall, it was about 36 hours of traveling on both ends of the trip. What's the best time to climb Kilimanjaro? We climbed in June, the first week in June. Next year in 2025, we're actually going to be climbing at the end of August. A lot of people recommend climbing Kilimanjaro during the dry seasons, so from December to March or from June to October. I asked our head guide what his favorite time of the year was to climb Kilimanjaro, and he said that October is his favorite month to climb. I selfishly chose the first part of June and the last part of August to climb Kilimanjaro because personally I like to have a good 6 to 8 weeks in the summer to go on adventures with my family when I'm not leading trips for Hike Like a Woman. I really liked the first part of June. It was a little bit chilly, but our weather was actually really good and the mountain wasn't that busy. It's going to be really busy in August when we climb next year, but I chose August for a reason, and that's because here in the Rockies, I want to give people the opportunity to get some high altitude, some elevation training in before that trip. And we just can't get up to those higher elevations usually until the 4th of July. So I kicked it from June to August, hoping that we can get some good altitude training in before that next climb. But now that I've climbed Kilimanjaro, I know that if you hike pole pole, slowly, if you're good about resting, eating, drinking, and if you just do what your guides say, you're going to acclimate on the mountain. The most important thing is to listen to your guides because they lead clients up and down this mountain so many times a year. They know exactly what you need to do to feel good and to acclimate. How hard is summit night? That question is like asking someone, how hard is it to deliver a baby? Because we all have such different experiences. We come to summit night on Kilimanjaro with different goals, different expectations, different fears. And personally, I had it in my mind that summit night was gonna be so hard that I almost didn't enjoy summit night because I was just waiting for it to get really hard. And to be honest, we were moving at such a slow pace that I was just tired of hiking by the time we got to summit night. I will say that about an hour before the sun came up was the most difficult part of summit night for me, because I was a little bit cold, I was hungry, I was dehydrated, and I was just tired of hiking. But once the sun started to rise and we could see Stella Point and we knew that Aruhu Peak was not far behind it, the climb got so much easier. So it was just like that hour before the sun came up. For me personally, that was the most difficult. But honestly, it all comes back to listening to your guides, listening to your body, taking care of your body, and just going into summit night knowing that there's going to be something about it that is probably going to be difficult for you personally, and it's going to be something different than someone else in your group might be experiencing. Finally, how do you train for climbing Mount Kilimanjaro? There's a lot of really great information out there about training and preparing physically to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. If you check out the comments below, you will see a link to the training plan that I'm personally following to get ready for next year. I did a whole lot of walking, whole lot of hiking. I added some weight vest. I trained with the boots and shoes that I wore on the mountain, and I really liked doing that to get ready for Kilimanjaro. But there were a few deficiencies in my own personal training. One of the deficiencies was just strength in general, and I've lost a lot of strength since cancer treatment, and so just building that muscle back up is important for me to get ready for the next climb, as well as some flexibility. And the flexibility really came down to like Barranco Wall Day, when you're reaching and climbing and stretching. I just want to feel a little more loose and a little more limber. So strength and flexibility are two things that I'm adding to my workouts to prepare for next year. What was that one big question that I had about climbing Kilimanjaro? I wanted to know about the logistics. I wanted to know how our guides, how our cooks, and how our porters were going to take care of 24 women on the trail as we moved the equivalent of a small town to a different camp every single day. I wanted to know how our guides were going to be able to take care of women who hiked all different speeds, who had such different experience levels when it came to hiking and climbing. I wanted to know how they were going to feed us, how they were going to purify enough water for us to drink, how they were going to motivate and inspire us on the trail, and how they were just going to take care of us in general. I've been guiding and outfitting in the outdoors for well over a decade, and I couldn't wrap my mind around the logistics involved with climbing Kilimanjaro. And on our climb, what I learned about the logistics were amazing. The guides on Kilimanjaro know this mountain, and they know exactly what they need to do to ensure their clients, like us, have success on the mountain. They know what we need to eat. They know how much we need to drink. They know how much rest we need and when to rest. They knew what we needed to wear to be warm, dry, and comfortable. And our success was their success. I also learned that most of our guides started as porters. They spent years walking up and down the mountain and learning how the guides were interacting with clients on the mountain. Once a porter has a lot of experience, then they can move up to become a guide. But a lot of it seemed like on-the-job training to me, which is a great way to learn. I was happy to see that our guides were also taking good care of our porters. In fact, on the very first night when we arrived at camp, one of our porters was sick, and our lead guide went to take care of this sick porter. And it made me feel good knowing that we had selected a guiding company where the porters were well taken care of. If you want to know what climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is like, go check out this video right here, where you can see our entire climb from start to finish and really experience what climbing Mount Kilimanjaro feels like.